Hi and welcome back. So in this video I'm going to cover the stats I got from my last blood test that was taken at my 66-month point of my longevity experiment, which is 5 years and 6 months. Enough waffling off me. Let's get into it. So before we start, let's look at the supplements I was taking at the time of this blood test. Some things have changed, so stick with it. NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, 1.5 grams a day. Trans resveratrol, 1 gram a day, only on my non-training days. That's a Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. When I say non-training, non-weightlifting days. TMG, trimethylglycine, 1.5 grams a day. Metformin, 1,000 milligrams, so 1 gram. I'm now taking two 500 milligram capsules. That's a slow release. I'm taking those just in the evening after my evening meal. Vitamin D3, 5,000 international units per day, 10,000 on a Sunday and a Wednesday. Vitamin K2, 120 micrograms, MK7 version. Magnesium, 250 milligrams. That's the L-threonate version. High molecular weight, hyaluronic acid, 400 milligrams per day for hyaluronic acid. Quercetin, 2.4 grams a day on the first, second, and third of each month. Fisetin, 2.4 grams a day, first, second, and third of each month. If you want to know why it's periodic dosing and not every day, there's a link in the description below to the video that explains that. Dried parsley, 1 tablespoon per day in my yogurt. Again, difficult to get here, so I'm not always taking that, and that seems to have had an effect on my iron scores. SIRT6 activator, 800 milligrams per day. DIM, 600 milligrams a day, 200 in the morning, 200 between 11 and 12 around lunchtime, and then 200 before I go to sleep. Glynac, glycine, and NAC, 800 milligrams per day. Creatine, 5 grams a day, and that's after I start taking that after the blood test, so it doesn't have a negative effect on my creatinine scores. Slight change now to the protocol. Before, I was getting this blood test 4 times a year, so every 3 months. It's a bit of a drama booking the hotels, getting the kids out of school, taking the ferry, having the blood test, and then coming back. So what I'm now going to do is get this test done every 4 months, so only 3 times per year. And recently I added omega-3 fatty acids, 800 milligrams of EPA, and 600 milligrams of DHA. So that's the supplements I was taking at the time of this blood test. Let's move on and take a look at my lipid profile. You can see here my total cholesterol is high, 232. I'm not bothered about that. It's slightly down from 246 the last time I got checked. That's because my LDL cholesterol level is at 168.4, and I'm not really bothered about my LDL cholesterol level. The total cholesterol level used to be a lot higher. It changed to being less than 130 in the 1990s. Prior to that, in the 80s, you could be anywhere between 300 and 359. Surprise, surprise, it changed in the 1990s when statins became available and went on to be the most successful with regard to money for the drug companies. I'm now going to show a very short clip from Sean Baker, where he covers a Korean study of 12.8 million people and the mortality rates for those people who had high cholesterol levels.
Let the cholesterol be where it is. Remember, I showed you guys a study from South Korea, 12.8 million people looking at all-cause mortality and cholesterol. The most beneficial or least likely to die group were those that had total cholesterol between 210 and 249 milligrams per deciliter, which is much higher than places like the American Heart Association would recommend it be. So interesting times. Remember, the science is often wrong for you, the follow the science people. And so maybe this new study's wrong, maybe the old studies are wrong, hard to say.
So the sweet spot there seems to be between 210 and 249, which is good. I'm presently at 232, so I'm happy with my total cholesterol scores. Let's move on to blood sugar. You can see here, it's still the same as last time, 5.8, which in the Philippines is okay because it's less than 6.5. Other places I've had it checked, it needs to be 5.7 or lower. So I'm in the increased risk of diabetes reference range. It has been down as low as 5.5, and I want to get it back down similar to that as well, because when I work up my biological age as opposed to chronological, these are one of the markers that will say how old I am biologically, and obviously I want to keep that as low as possible, and they use the blood glucose marker. So I've started to take 1 gram of berberine now per day, and we'll see if that has any effect when I get my blood tested again in about 4 months. So moving on to my liver profile, you can see here everything is in the blue, so no issues there. You can see this one, which is my albumin globulin ratio, is a pinkish kind of violet color, 1.29. That's because they changed the reference range, but it's still within reference range of 1.1 to 2.5. So no issues with my liver profile. Renal, again, no issues. For some reason, they couldn't check my uric acid. I can't remember the reason why. They did tell me. Everything here is in the blue apart from my blood urea nitrogen. That can be up to 25, it's 26, so only just over. And because of that, then the ratio of bun to creatinine has gone to 25. It should be 23. So it was high for quite a long time here in the Middle East. We all thought, or I thought that was down to dehydration. I don't think it is here. Anyway, we'll see how that works out after the next blood test in 4 months. Moving on to thyroid, you can see here it wasn't checked. Again, I can't remember the reason why it wasn't checked, but they did tell me. They didn't have whatever they needed to do that particular test. So we'll see what happens in 4 months. My vitamin D down slightly from 89 to 85. Not worried about that because that's slightly over the sufficient range, but not toxic yet. Then we've got vitamin B12, again slightly down from 676 to 645. Again, not really worried about that drop, so still well within reference range. My testosterone, again, that's dropped slightly from 688 down to 585. Again, not really a big issue, well within the reference range for a man of my age. Moving on to my iron, you can see here my iron score is still 8, which is technically that's low. You can see here in the Middle East, it was always high. I think that's down to me not being able to get hold of parsley as often as I could. So I'm probably going to look into taking an iron supplement to get that up. My total iron binding capacity, TIBC, was low at 43. That's now back up to 49. 43 wasn't really that low. 44 is the bottom of the reference range, so up to 49, which is good. My unsaturated iron binding capacity, UIBC, is 41. Anywhere between 20 and 62 is good. And for some reason, they checked my ferritin, HCA, HDA, which tells you if your iron is low. Mine was 142, so although not in the middle, definitely well above 30, which is the bottom of the reference range. Again, they couldn't check my CRP this time. Amylase, you've now got to get a doctor's letter, so I'll look into getting that the next time to see if I can get my amylase checked. My lipase as well, they couldn't check that either, so quite a poor showing by the hospital. I don't know if there was a need to use it where they don't normally use it, or if they just couldn't get hold of the things that they needed. So that's it for my lipase. Moving on to my blood markers, you can see here everything in the red apart from this one, which is my MCH concentration. That's 33.1. The lower end of the reference range is 32, so not really a big issue. If you have this score out of reference range, it's usually because someone's red blood cells don't have enough hemoglobin. Mine is 14.4. The bottom end of the reference range is 14.0. I've been in the high 14s and in the 15s before. This was when I was taking lots of parsley, so getting the iron. So it may be to do with the iron. Hopefully I can reverse this now when I start taking an iron supplement. The next set of blood markers, you can see there, everything there is in the blue. Feel free to pause the video and check out what the markers are on the left with the scores on the right. Estradiol, which is the estrogen score, which is the female sex hormone. You can see mine down from 16.40 to 15.20. Now, we as men do need estrogen in our bodies, but we don't need it at high levels. You can see mine was 41.1, which was high. That's what alerted me to this in the first place. I started to take DIM. Initially, I took 200 in the morning, 200 at lunchtime, 200 in the afternoon, and my score dropped down to 30, which I was very happy with. Then I thought it's bro science to spread it around. I'll just take the 600 milligrams. It jumped up to 36.6. So I'm now back to 200 milligrams in the morning, 200 around lunchtime, and 200 before I go to bed. My EGFR, this has crept up to 82, which means I'm back in the mild decrease range for kidney disease. although having a high number doesn't necessarily mean you've got kidney disease or kidney damage. There's other markers you need to look at, things like protein in the urine, and we'll move on to that next. All the other markers that they talk about for kidney damage, I don't seem to have. It may be that my creatinine levels are high. Those are ones that I do want to get down because it'll bring this score down, because the E means estimated. Also, a high creatinine score reflects negatively in my biological age when I get that done using these blood test results. So I'm going to see if I get my creatinine levels down. I'm not eating any more red meat than I normally would, which is where you get a lot of creatinine from. I may cut back on my creatine supplementation. Urine, you can see here everything is in the blue, which is good, and you can see here protein in my urine is also 0, so that also goes towards me not having any serious kidney damage. So that's it for my latest blood test results. Well, I think all in all, pretty good. No massive changes there. I do want to get my blood sugar levels down, so we'll see in 4 months' time if the 1 gram of added berberine, because I don't really want to increase my metformin dose, will actually make a change. If it doesn't make too much of a change, then I'll probably look at upping the berberine level to maybe 1.5 or even 2 milligrams per day. I'm going to have to start looking for iron supplements now, because I do want to get my iron up in my blood, which will also bring up my hemoglobin and level out the markers outside the reference range we've just covered. So that's it for my 66 month point, 5 years and 6 months. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of my test results?